It seems like if we're lucky, once every other year or so, a game comes out that seems to dominate the entire culture around gaming. Everyone in your life is talking about this game. Your friends, your coworkers, your cousins, your fucking tax guy is talking about it. Not only does it hit an absurd level of hype, but it also pushes the industry forward. The last two games off the top of my head I can remember doing this were Red Dead Redemption 2 and Elden Ring. Red Dead 2 proved that open world games don't have to make a choice between size and minute detail. I still feel like 5 years later, no other open world game has the same level of production value in its environments, AI, and storytelling while also being that massive. And Elden Ring is often credited as being the second champion of a new breed of open world games where the gameplay is your story. It's the type of game that makes you excited to tell all your friends or coworkers about that time you stumbled upon a random cave and explored it for almost an hour, finding crazy enemies and treasure. Oftentimes in games, story and gameplay are like oil and water. You can put them in the same bottle or disc, but it almost never truly mixes. It's kind of been that way since the beginning. In Zelda 1, you get all your story before you even press start. You get a whole bunch of exposition in this giant text scroll, and then you just play the game. And even though games have evolved so much over time, it's still like that today. It's how in The Last of Us, you'll go through a 40 segment of walking through abandoned rooms with waist-high barriers, shooting up a bunch of people, and then you get rewarded with a 5-minute cutscene. It's the cutscenes that really push the narrative forward, while the in-game conversations help flesh out characters. It's these cutscenes that really hit high emotions and bring the narrative closer and closer to its conclusion. When Breath of the Wild came out before Red Dead 2 and Elden Ring, it felt like the next evolutionary step for open world games. No longer did they have to feel like GPS simulator where all you do is follow a line to talk to people, to start the next mission, to follow a line. Breath of the Wild was just about freedom. It was about trial and error. It was about discovery. During the 6-year span we waited for the sequel, Tears of the Kingdom, I realized I only beat 2 open world games, Red Dead 2 and Ghostwire Tokyo. I tried so many others during that 6-year span, like Far Cry 3, 4, and 5. I tried replaying Skyrim and Oblivion. With Red Dead 2, it actually took me 2 tries to see the genius in it, but once I did, I was hooked. And with Ghostwire, I think I just loved how abandoned and how foreign it felt to me. The map in that game is just so beautiful and mystical. It combines intrigue with horror, which makes sense for Tango Gameworks. Seriously, if you can't afford a plane ticket to Japan like me and most people, buy a copy of this game. It might scratch that itch. This is the most photogenic game I've ever played in my life. So for Tears of the Kingdom, I went to my first midnight launch in like 4 years, and of course I got the gamer flu. Guys, you're giving us a bad reputation. Why are you leaving the house without a shower or at least some deodorant or cologne? Why are you leaving the house if you're sick? Yes, I'm talking to you with the patchy beard, the Adidas hoodie, the Nike shorts, and the beat up basketball shoes. Don't go to a midnight launch if you're sick. I got 25 hours into Tears and I realized I just can't do it anymore. With games like this, I realized that basic gameplay ideas usually get fragmented so you can find things around the world to upgrade them and encourage player exploration. The easiest example I can use is Skyward Sword. People hated the stamina gauge in that game originally, but damn, looking back on it, that shit is way better than the one in Tears of the Kingdom. In Skyward Sword, you get a set amount of time that's longer than the one you start out with in Tears, but since you're using it over the span of a 30-hour game, you start to understand its limitations. In Breath and Tears, they give you such a bad stamina bar that you can't do almost anything in the beginning of the game, arbitrarily forcing you to explore, to go to shrines, and eventually get a stamina bar that equals the one in Skyward Sword, and then of course eventually surpassing it. I found this YouTube video where a guy used the stamina bar in Skyward Sword until he ran out of stamina, and it was 8 or 9 seconds, I think 8. Then I found this Reddit post that says if you get max stamina in Breath of the Wild, Link can run for 15 minutes of game time, and 1 real world second is a minute in the game, so 15 seconds. That's not even double the stamina in Skyward Sword. My point is, when you have over 100 hours of exploring and doing shrines and stuff, I would expect a max stamina bar to allow me to run way longer than not even double that of Skyward Sword. I guess a much simpler example is, imagine in the next Mario game you have to like find these fruit around the world that increase Mario's maximum jump height. That would be ass, but the scary part is I feel like they could do that. Games like this were super appealing to me when I was younger and had more free time, but I think I'm just getting to the point where I like the oil and water being separate. I like having my long gameplay segments being rewarded with a good cutscene or a moment of exposition or unlocking new items. And I'm not saying I need a story or cutscenes either. I love my gameplay focused retro games like Super Mario Bros. 3, and I love my very vague games like Ico. But whenever me and my friends used to talk about our time playing Skyrim, Fallout 3, and Breath of the Wild for a few examples, we never talk about the main story as a highlight. If you're trying to tell a good story, confines and boundaries can be useful tools for imagination, especially for things like side quests, which nowadays, 9 times out of 10 when I hear the words side quest, I roll my eyes and sigh. Majora's Mask has some of the best side quests in gaming history, and that game is so small compared to the stuff we have now. The side quests in that game range from beautiful and tragic to just strange. But in open world games today, the side quests are kinda like, "Duh, my sister is sick. Can you get her 3 blue tulips and a jar of sacred mountain water?" They're just lame. It's optional padding. It's so boring. If I want to do errands, I'll just shut off the fucking game. And just because I'm shitting on open world games doesn't mean I need my game to be a hallway either. Out of the From Software games, I've only beaten Demon's Souls, what the fuck, and Bloodborne. But I've messed around with Elden Ring and Dark Souls for a while. I think my favorite aspect of Dark Souls is when you explore for like an hour, barely escaping death, and then you find a shortcut back to the Firelink Shrine. Again, it's not open world, but open enough. Okay, let's go back to Zelda. I like Zelda. Starting mainly with A Link to the Past in 1991, the Legend of Zelda games have mostly provided us with experiences that felt perfectly tailored. Go online and look up some old walkthroughs just to see how well these games blended linearity with open-ended design. Found an optional item? Now you can start a trading side quest. Beat a dungeon? Now this optional place and that optional place are open to explore. Have a new story item? Now you can go back to that place you were stuck at before and find a heart piece to increase your health. Just because a game isn't huge doesn't mean you're constantly feeling like you're being forced to mainline it. Arkham Asylum is a great example. It's the only one in the Arkham trilogy we don't call open world, and yet when I replayed it a year and a half ago, I still felt like it was big enough to allow me to explore and move the story at my own desired pace. And when the series eventually did go open world with City, that map is so damn small compared to what we have now, it still feels phenomenal. Again, it feels like the player always has control of the pacing. Wanna mainline it? Go ahead. Wanna explore? Go ahead. This guy gets it. The city also just felt dense with, once again, fantastic side quests and enemies on random rooftops and streets to fight. If games like GTA 4 and Arkham City are what we would now call small maps in open world games, and games like Skyrim and Red Dead 1 are medium sized, and games like Red Dead 2 and Tears of the Kingdom are big, I still feel like the best option is somewhere between small and medium. Give me a game that feels dense with lots to do and I can get lost in it if I want to. Don't give me a game that tells me there's a story mission on the corner of the map, but in order to get to it, I'm forced to do optional shrines to increase my stamina so I can climb higher mountains, but when I climb the mountain, my character gets too cold, so I have to go to a village to buy warm clothes, and then when I get the clothes and I get there, I have to find a fucking fish to get a power that I had in the first game. I was kinda hoping developers were slowing down on chasing the open world bag. Ubisoft announced that their next Assassin's Creed game, Mirage, was going to be smaller and not as open as the last few, and that honestly sounded interesting to me. But when you see shit like this, and this, it's clear that I'm in the minority. There's not many fuckers like me who would rather play Pizza Tower or Arafel over Tears of the Kingdom. And I'm not trying to bring this game down or anybody who loves it. I'm genuinely happy for you that you have a game that you like so much. I am happy for you. And I'm happy for Nintendo's success. So, I lost Zelda, my favorite game franchise, my favorite media franchise, to open world games. If I lose Mario 2,